In order to assess the achievement of the soft skill aisle of my course, I had periodic meetings with the students. I asked them the process with which they organized the activities of the team. For instance, in many groups, 2 students studied the formal problem in the theory, while other 2 students developed the codes using peer programming approaches. I also asked the students how the team members communicate each other. For instance, which tools they used, whether some students acted as the leader, and how they solved potential conflict. I asked them to fill individual form, and I did the same for every group. This form has been developed as a list of statements linked to behaviors and/or situations that may occur during a teamwork activities. And for each of them, students have to indicate their level of agreement. So in the first phase, students are asked to reflect on the group performance, not on the other team members' performance. After having read the forms filled by the students, I provided each team with some feedback on the organization of the work used and how it could have been improved.
The way intended learning outcomes were assessed was crucial for me. I decided to use 3 different methodologies. First, self-assessment. I used 2 approaches. The first one consisted on a short questionnaire that the students had to fill at home on the first and on the 6th lesson of the course. The questionnaire asked students to evaluate themselves according to some soft skills and according to their engagement and performance during the whole course. The second method consisted in after-class retrospective learning videos. Students were asked to log, after each session, a video where they explain what they have learned, what they have enjoyed, what they have found challenging, and what they will expressively improve for the next time. This was done after each lecture. All the videos were uploaded to a social platform like Instagram, where all students have access to the videos and to the feedback. They were also asked to assess their classmates, especially those that were part of their team. They assessed their peers in terms of leadership, communication, ethics, teamwork, and creativity. This was done during the wrap-up session. For assessing their peers, the students were given an evaluation grid and instructions on how to assess. They had to evaluate their classmates on different criteria, like effectiveness of communication, creativity, and originality of the project and presentation, the quality of the presentation, and the impact of the project itself. This peer assessment took place at the end of the lecture, in the 6th session. However, during the wrap-up after each session, students were also invited to give feedback to their colleagues, especially if they were their members of the team. Finally, I got to assess each of the groups and each individual in each team. One of the main strengths of this type of evaluation is the real-time feedback both the student and professor got. The student got instant feedback right away after each activity and during the activity itself. The professor has instant feedback about the course and the activities performed from the students. I can know when they were struggling and I could act right away. As for the self-assessment, it allowed the student to understand and explain why they were performing poorly and why they were performing better. Finally, it was easy to relate the activities to each intended learning outcomes and soft skill, something that is really difficult to do when you're using traditional tests. For the difficulties, I think that is mainly about how the instructions and the rules of the game are explained at the beginning of the course. This step is crucial because they are not used to active learning approaches, and it can be a space for misunderstanding. So, the fact that the professor, for example, has a more passive role and acts like a facilitator can lead the students to lose focus and get messy. If things are explained from the beginning and the stakes of the course are well stated, this shouldn't be a problem.
Il est très délicat d'évaluer le niveau d'acquisition ou d'amélioration d'une soft skill. Dans le cadre de mon cours de méthodologie, je n'avais pas prévu d'évaluation à proprement parler des soft skills sur lesquelles je souhaitais faire travailler mes étudiants. Il n'y avait donc pas d'évaluation sommative. Par contre, j'ai mis en place depuis quelques années un système d'évaluation formative que mes étudiants apprécient. Le principe est le suivant. Lors de la dernière phase de l'activité, les équipes présentent leur travail à l'oral à toute la classe et c'est l'occasion de faire un débriefing collectif sur les points positifs et négatifs. Un secrétaire prend des notes pour créer un document de synthèse partagée. En tant qu'enseignante, je fais des remarques très générales sur la position dans l'espace, le choix du vocabulaire, le ton, etc. Mais je demande aussi à tous les étudiants spectateurs de faire un retour sur la prestation de leurs camarades, sur un petit papier anonyme. Les étudiants ont pour consigne de faire un commentaire sur ce qu'ils ont trouvé bien ou moins bien et de proposer des pistes d'amélioration. Ils sont libres de mettre ce qu'ils veulent sur leur papier qui ne sera lu que par son destinataire. Mais j'insiste par contre sur un point fondamental, les remarques doivent être constructives et bienveillantes. Nous essayons aussi de filmer les passages. Chaque étudiant repart ainsi avec sa vidéo et une vingtaine de petits papiers avec des commentaires personnalisés. Ils ont ainsi tous les éléments en main pour s'améliorer.
Because of the very much content-related focus of the video production of students, the focus of assessment was on the narrative aspects of the videos. Naturally, these are not as obvious to detect and analyze as purely technical aspects of video, for example regarding quality of filming, audio track, etc. The assessment was therefore strongly based on the reflective depth of the narration concerning the individual development of knowledge of students throughout the course. In this respect, one of the greatest difficulties of this task became visible. Managing to bridge the gap between formulating instructions, guiding questions and other necessary scaffolding beforehand, and not being in direct contact with students during the course. This is of course inevitable in the e-learning design of courses like this, but it supposedly hampered the depth of reflection of students within the video. In providing guiding questions for this task, the aim was to give students orientation as to what they are supposed to reflect upon, as the teaching staff has no insight into previous experiences of students regarding reflective tasks. However, providing guiding questions always entices students to simply stick to answering these, without putting much thought into a deeper reflection of what they experienced throughout the course. Furthermore, the aim of giving a rather large cohort of students the possibility to create a video illustrating a reflection of what they perceive to have learned naturally comes with a few inaccuracies in the subsequent assessment. As soon as such a complex mental task like a reflection of knowledge development is supposed to be assessed in a standardized format, a greater amount of experience needs to be gained with respect to the operationalization. First experience is proof that it is quite difficult to measure the soft skills communication and content creation, as they are very qualitative in nature and can only fully be evaluated in the entirety of the resulting reflective videos. Overall, the main advantages of deploying a task format like this are posing a fairly new challenge to students with producing and editing video content, a time-efficient assessment of reflective tasks in courses with large cohorts, empowering students to dig deeper in their reflections by taking a more process-oriented perspective on their own development of knowledge, not only describing what they perceive has happened, but also how they feel the knowledge has been built. Aiming for short and illustrative presentations in both audio and visual manner.